The early morning sun painted Ellen's garden in soft gold, casting long shadows across the dew-soaked lawn. Wind chimes danced lazily in the breeze, their delicate notes mixing with the scent of lavender and fresh coffee. She sat cross-legged on her porch swing, wrapped in a cozy cardigan, breathing in the stillness she had fought so hard to find. For the first time in years, she felt a glimmer of peace, not the performative kind that came with applause or studio, lights, but something raw, quiet, and real. Then came the screech. It was sharp and sudden, like tires skidding over gravel, followed by the clatter of a fence gate slamming open. Ellen's eyes snapped toward the noise, her coffee sloshing as she jerked forward. A towering black SUV sat like a beached whale across two driveways, hazard lights blinking. The driver's door flung open, and out stepped a woman with frosted, blonde hair in a sky-high bun, oversized sunglasses, and a bedazzled queen of everything tote. She barked orders at a team of movers like a general on a battlefield. Ellen blinked. So much for the quiet neighborhood. The woman, Karen, as Ellen would soon learn, was a spectacle. She gestured wildly at the movers. No, that armoire goes in the formal sitting room. Do you people not understand feng shui? Ellen watched from her porch, trying not to stare. But Karen noticed. You must be the neighbor, she called, marching across the lawn uninvited. I'm Karen, and before you ask, yes, the rumors are true. I do make a killer lemon meringue. There was no handshake, just a grin that didn't quite reach her eyes, and the kind of confidence that announced itself before the person did. Ellen stood to greet her, extending a polite smile. Nice to meet you, Karen. Oh, I know who you are, Karen cut in, already glancing around Ellen's yard. Trust me, everyone knows. Ellen DeGeneres. Retired or canceled, depending on who you ask. It wasn't a question, and Ellen's smile faltered. Right, well, just here for some quiet now. Karen leaned in conspiratorially. Sure, but don't worry. I'm not the judging type. I believe in second chances, even for people like you. That was the first strike. Over the next few days, Karen made herself impossible to ignore. She parked halfway across Ellen's driveway, left her trash cans out for days, and hosted nightly welcome mixers that sounded like frat parties masquerading as book clubs. Ellen, ever the peacemaker, tried to keep her head down. She'd moved here for tranquility, not drama. Still, something about Karen itched beneath her skin, like a mosquito you can hear but never see. Then came the incident with the wind chimes. It was a Saturday morning. Ellen was trimming her lavender bushes when Karen stormed over, phone in hand, voice sharp. Look, I don't want to be that neighbor, but these chimes are giving my husband migraines. He's very sensitive. Ellen blinked. They've been here for years. No one's ever complained. Karen pouted. Well, I'm complaining now. Maybe try something a little less whimsical. It's not a yoga retreat, it's a residential neighborhood. Ellen bit her tongue. I'll think about it. Great, Karen said, already turning away. Oh, and maybe tone down the rainbow lights too. My kids asked if this was a gay club or something. That was strike two. Still, Ellen stayed, silent. She'd been through worse. She'd survived the public's judgment, media scrutiny, betrayal from people she trusted. Karen was just another petty tyrant with a superiority complex and a Facebook account. But Ellen underestimated how far Karen would go. The neighborhood brunch was the final straw. It was advertised as a casual, no-pressure gathering to build community. Ellen showed up late, unsure whether she'd even be welcome. The moment she stepped onto Karen's perfectly manicured lawn, the laughter quieted. Conversation stuttered. Eyes turned. Karen, standing beneath a pastel canopy with a mimosa in hand, beamed. Well, look who finally joined us. We were just talking about you, Ellen froze. Oh? Karen clinked her glass. Everyone's so curious about our newest neighbor. I mean, sure, we've seen the clips, those backstage tantrums, the whole be kind irony, but it's just different hearing it firsthand. The crowd laughed nervously. Ellen's chest tightened. Of course, Karen continued, tilting, her head like a cobra about to strike. We all want to believe people can change. Even celebrities. Even problematic ones. Ellen turned to leave, but Karen wasn't done. You know what they say, she called out. You can take the girl out of Hollywood, but you can't take the Hollywood out of the girl. The words hit like a slap by the time Ellen made it. Home. Her hands were shaking. She sat on the edge of her bed, heart pounding, humiliated and furious. She opened her phone and saw it. Karen's Facebook post, a video from the brunch with Ellen looking stunned. The caption reading, "Trying to be neighborly, but fame makes some people dangerous. Stay safe, suburbia." The video had over 600 shares. That night, Ellen's garbage cans were overturned, and her mailbox was left open. A silent warning. The next morning, she went for a walk and noticed her neighbors avoiding eye contact. One woman even pulled her child closer. The whispers had turned into walls. Karen hadn't just poisoned a few minds, she'd infected the whole block. Ellen stood at her front gate, fists clenched, watching Karen plant chrysanthemums in her garden like nothing had happened. She laughed at something on her phone and took a selfie, the filter softening her features until she looked angelic. Then, slowly, she turned and locked eyes with Ellen. Karen smiled, a slow, satisfied smile that said, "Checkmate." Ellen held the stare, and for the first time since she moved in, she didn't look away. Ellen tried at first to take the high road. She'd spent a lifetime learning how to smile through insults, how to laugh off jabs dressed as jokes. Karen, she told herself, was just another act in the long-running comedy of suburban absurdity. But the difference was, this one wasn't funny. Not when the neighbors began stepping back when she passed by, not when someone spray-painted fake nice in looping red letters on her recycling bin, and certainly not when 2 police officers showed up on her porch, apologetically holding a noise complaint report for a party that never happened. "That's not possible," Ellen said, her voice even. "I've been inside all day." One of the officers, a younger man with apologetic eyes, shifted on his feet. "We're just following up, ma'am. Multiple calls. Said it was loud music, shouting, something about flashing lights." Ellen blinked. "I don't even own a stereo system." The officers glanced at each other, then nodded politely and left. Ellen closed the door, her hands trembling. On instinct, she checked her security camera. The footage showed an empty street, no music, no lights, only Karen standing on her porch with a glass of wine, watching the patrol car drive away. She raised her glass in a mock toast. Ellen stared at the screen, jaw tightening. Later that day, she walked the perimeter of her property. Her chimes were missing, ripped down. Only a frayed string remained, swinging slightly in the wind. The smell of lavender no longer soothed, it stung. She tried again. Ellen had always believed in the power of conversation, in disarming hostility with kindness. So she baked. It wasn't even a peace offering, really. Just her mother's banana bread recipe, the kind that filled the kitchen with warmth and childhood. She wrapped the loaf in a towel and carried it next door. Karen answered in full makeup, as if she'd been waiting for a camera to pan in. Her expression flickered at the sight of Ellen on her doorstep. "I brought something," Ellen said simply. Karen accepted the bread with theatrical delight. "Oh, how neighborly of you! Is this what we're doing now? Baking our way to forgiveness?" Ellen kept her tone measured. "I thought we could talk." Karen leaned against the doorframe, slicing into the loaf with a manicured fingernail. "I don't think there's much to talk about. You're the one who seems to think the whole world's still your audience." "I'm not looking for an audience," Ellen replied. "Just peace." Karen's smile turned brittle. "You know what your problem is? You think you can just charm people into forgetting. But people remember, Ellen. They remember the stories, the walkouts, the awkward interviews. I'm just helping. The neighborhoods stay informed." Ellen stepped back, the heat rising in her chest. "You don't know me." "Oh, but I do," Karen said softly, eyes gleaming. "I've seen the reruns." That night, Ellen sat alone in her backyard, staring at the ghost of her chimes and wondering how everything had spiraled so fast. She opened her phone, scrolling through social media, not her own, but the neighborhood group on Nextdoor. It was worse than she feared. Karen had posted again, a long performative paragraph about protecting the community from toxic energy and deceptive kindness. No names, of course, but the message was clear. The comments piled in. A few sympathetic, most not. Accusations, gossip. One even questioned if Ellen had moved there under a fake name. She wanted to scream. But instead, she closed the app and stared into the darkness. Her show had ended years ago, but somehow she was back under a spotlight she didn't ask for. The next morning brought a different kind of storm. Rain poured from the sky in sheets, soaking the earth and drumming against her windows. Ellen welcomed the gloom. At least it gave her an excuse to stay inside. But as she passed her front window, something caught her eye. A small crowd had gathered across the street under umbrellas. Karen stood in the center holding a clipboard, animated and smiling. They were planning something, organizing. Ellen opened her front door just enough to hear. "And this Saturday, we'll do a neighborhood cleanup. I'll bring extra gloves for those of you who don't usually contribute." Laughter. Ellen stepped out. "Need help organizing?" Karen turned, smile unshaken. "Oh, Ellen, didn't see you there. We're just putting together something simple, keeping the block clean, friendly, safe." "I'm happy to help." Karen paused, then nodded. "Of course. You can pick up litter by the old maple. I'll make sure someone supervises." The dismissal was clear. Ellen's stomach twisted, but she nodded. She could feel the eyes on her. As she walked back to her porch, every step punctuated by whispered side conversations, as if she were the one who didn't belong. Later that week, she found an anonymous flyer slipped under her door, a photoshopped image of her face on a wanted poster. Canceled, "Don't let her fool you twice." That night, she drove to a secluded diner 2 towns over, a place no one would recognize her, where the jukebox still played 80s rock and the waitresses called everyone hon. She sat at a booth, staring into a cup of lukewarm coffee, trying to remember what it felt like to be funny, to be adored, to belong. Then the bell above the door chimed. A tall woman in a bomber jacket walked in, rain slicking her hair to her forehead. She caught Ellen's eye, paused, then smiled. It took Ellen a moment to recognize her. Rachel, one of her old producers. Fierce, brilliant, unflinchingly honest. They hugged briefly, the kind of embrace that reminded Ellen of who she'd been before the world flipped. "What the hell happened to you?" Rachel asked, sliding into the booth. Ellen exhaled, slow. "I moved in next to the final boss of suburban warfare?" Rachel raised an eyebrow. "You gonna fight back? Or are you just gonna let her monologue you to death?" Ellen stirred her coffee. "It's not like I can walk out and pull a prank. This isn't a studio. These people believe her. I'm the villain here." Rachel's tone sharpened. "Only if you keep playing defense." Ellen looked up. A shift. Rachel leaned in. "You're smarter than her, more experienced. You've survived worse storms. So don't just react. Make a plan. Be funny, be sharp, be the Ellen I remember. Just maybe a little more dangerous." The words lingered long after Rachel left. Ellen drove home with headlights cutting through fog, her mind spinning. She parked in her driveway, rain still falling, and stared at Karen's house across the way. The windows were lit, shadows moving inside, laughter faint through the walls. But something had changed. Ellen wasn't scared anymore. She wasn't confused. She was planning. The next morning, the sky was clear, deceptively serene, as if unaware of the quiet war now brewing beneath its blue expanse. Ellen stood in front of her bathroom mirror, hair tied back, her face bare, but her eyes sharper than they'd been in months. Rachel's words echoed like a drumbeat in her ears. She wasn't going to survive this with silence. Not this time. Karen wanted a villain? Then maybe it was time she met one. Ellen spent the day in motion, each task deliberate. She reactivated her dormant Twitter account, not to broadcast, but to observe. Karen was surprisingly easy to trace. Her Instagram was a patchwork of curated suburbia, motivational quotes with glittery fonts, smug selfies in luxury athleisure, and a steady stream of stories about her community leadership. One post in particular caught Ellen's attention. It was a photo of Karen, mid-speech, captioned, "Some of us build, others just take up space. Leading, with love, neighborhood queen." "Queen," Ellen muttered, a sardonic smirk tugging at her lips. She screenshotted everything, not for revenge, yet, but to study the pattern. Karen thrived on control, applause, being the nucleus of attention. She didn't crave peace, she craved dominance, and she wielded performance like a sword. Ellen knew that game. She had played it better than most, but it was time for a rewrite. The following weekend, Ellen made her move. She began small, subtle. At the community cleanup, she arrived early. Not in sweats, but in crisp khakis, sleeves rolled, hair pulled into a no-nonsense bun. She brought her own gloves, water bottles for everyone, and biodegradable trash bags stamped with a custom logo. Be kind for real. The irony didn't go unnoticed. Karen arrived late, of course, fashionably unprepared. She wore pristine white sneakers, a monogrammed vest, and a grin built for likes. "Didn't expect to see you here," she said, eyeing Ellen's logo with a flicker of disdain. Ellen smiled pleasantly. "Why not? I live here, don't I?" Karen hesitated, just long enough for others to notice. A few neighbors, those who had once avoided Ellen, smiled back at her now. One even offered to help with her side of the street. The shift was subtle but seismic. From there, Ellen escalated her campaign like a seasoned general. She offered to host the next neighborhood gathering. Something relaxed and real. She called it a retro game night and dressed the backyard with string lights, lawn chairs, and vintage board games. No press, no catering, no guest list, just music, laughter, and nostalgia. To her surprise, people came, more than she expected. They brought cookies, lawn chairs, old vinyl records. Someone even brought a karaoke mic. Ellen didn't lead the night. She let others shine. She laughed easily, remembered names, asked questions without steering the spotlight. And the crowd noticed. Karen noticed too. She arrived halfway through, armed with a tray of artisanal cupcakes and a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. But something was different now. The crowd didn't pivot to her. No one gushed over her baking or asked about her HOA plans. They were too busy laughing at a neighbor's off-key rendition of "Living on a Prayer." Ellen watched Karen from across the lawn. Their eyes met briefly. Karen's smile faltered. The next day, the smear campaign resumed. Anonymous posts returned to the neighborhood forums concerning activity at Ellen's house, inappropriate music at game night. But this time, something changed. People pushed back. A neighbor named Jorge commented, "I was there. It was family-friendly and fun. Maybe we should support each other instead of pointing fingers." Ellen didn't need to respond. Others did it for her. Karen, rattled, ramped up. She began circulating a petition to restore neighborhood standards, accusing Ellen of violating noise ordinances and disturbing the aesthetic balance of the block. She went door to door with it, clipboard in hand, rehearsed smile ready, but fewer doors opened. Some neighbors signed, out of habit or fear, but others refused. One woman reportedly told Karen, "You're starting to feel like the problem." The balance was shifting. But Ellen wasn't done. She waited until Saturday. Karen had advertised a garden gala on her front lawn. A fundraiser, she claimed, for neighborhood beautification. Really, it was a chance to show off. Live music, catered bites, flour. Arrangements flown in from somewhere ridiculous. Ellen watched it unfold from across the street, sipping iced tea. Then, precisely at 7:03 p.m., her plan went live. She uploaded a video, not a rant, not a tell-all. It was a short, stylishly edited clip titled, "How to Spot a Neighborhood Narcissist and What to Do About It." It opened with footage of a classic garden party from a sitcom, cut sharply with clips of Karen's public posts, each one paired with voiceover. When someone seeks control through fake kindness, constant surveillance, and public shaming, congratulations. You've met a suburban narcissist? The voice wasn't Ellen's. It was a narrator, calm, witty, and just sarcastic enough to bite. The video showed screenshots of Karen's accusations, juxtaposed with Ellen's cleanup efforts, community, events, and smiling neighbors. Then, the twist, Ellen revealed the truth behind Karen's anonymous posts, using metadata and timestamps to prove that the source accounts were all linked to the same IP. Karen's, the video ended on a high note. Kindness isn't a slogan. It's an action. Sometimes the kindest thing you can do is call out a bully. Fade to black. It spread fast. Neighbors shared it. Friends of friends reposted it. A local blog picked it up. Ellen didn't push it. She didn't have to. The video did the work for her. Across the street, Karen's party slowly began to thin. Guests checked their phones. Whispers spread like wildfire. One woman took her flower crown off a mid-conversation and left. Karen noticed. From her porch, she locked eyes with Ellen once more, but this time, there was no grin. Just confusion. Rage. Fear. Ellen raised her glass in a quiet toast. The queen had been unseated, and the next move would be hers. Karen didn't leave her house the next day. Not for her morning jog. Not to water her obsessive garden. Not even to collect the pristine white mail that had always been part of her suburban performance. The silence was louder than any insult. She'd lobbed over the fence, and Ellen noticed. Everyone noticed. By Sunday afternoon, Ellen's lawn was alive with children chasing each other, adults swapping stories and clinking glasses of lemonade. Her backyard had become a community heartbeat, not because she forced it, but because she let it happen. Real connection had replaced curated control, and no one missed Karen's iron grip. But Ellen wasn't celebrating yet. She knew Karen wasn't finished. People like her didn't vanish. They plotted, they rewrote reality. And sure enough, the next morning, a sleek black car rolled up to Karen's driveway. A woman in an ivory pantsuit stepped out with a leather portfolio tucked under one arm and sunglasses that looked far too expensive for a Monday lawyer. Ellen watched from behind her curtain as Karen greeted the woman with all the composed fury of a general readying for war. Papers were signed, hands were shaken. The front door shut like a gunshot. By nightfall, Ellen's phone buzzed. Cease and desist. The message was curt, clinical, and dripping with the kind of legal venom designed to paralyze. Karen was threatening to sue for defamation, harassment, and targeted public humiliation. The document accused Ellen of manufacturing falsehoods, weaponizing social media, and inflicting irreparable damage to reputation. Ellen read it once, twice, and then laughed, because buried in the legal posturing, between the lines of fear and desperation, was the truth. She had struck a nerve Karen didn't know she had, but Ellen didn't fight this one alone. She called Rachel. The plan that emerged wasn't just clever, it was surgical. Rachel, ever the master of media framing, helped Ellen gather her receipts. Every message, every anonymous post traced back to Karen. She contacted a digital forensics specialist who confirmed metadata and compiled a timeline that would hold in court. Or better yet, in the court of public opinion. Ellen didn't want revenge. She wanted a reckoning. On Friday, she released a second video. It opened with a close-up of Ellen, no makeup, no jokes, just her. The woman the world thought they knew, stripped of her stage, but not her voice. Hi, I'm Ellen. Some of you know me from television. Some of you know me because you live across the street. But all of you deserve to know the truth. The video laid it bare. She showed the cease and desist letter. She calmly addressed each accusation, countered with proof, then flipped the camera on Karen's behavior. The pattern of manipulation, the social engineering, the false reports. Then she dropped the bomb. Karen had used her position as HOA secretary to access and leak private information about residents. Emails, complaint forms, even security footage from shared neighborhood cameras. All documented, all traceable. The final clip was a voice memo. Karen, in a conversation she didn't know was recorded, laughing with a friend on speaker. She thinks being nice will save her. Let her bake her stupid banana bread. I run this neighborhood. Always have. Silence followed. And then, I could ruin her in a week if I wanted to. Ellen ended the video with a simple line. No one should be afraid to live in their own home. By midnight, the video had 500,000 views. The fallout came fast. Karen was removed from her HOA position after an emergency vote. A few board members tried to defend her until they realized doing so made them complicit. Ellen didn't press charges, but she did file a formal complaint through the local council and law enforcement. Investigations were opened. Neighbors who once tiptoed around Ellen now knocked on her door with casseroles and apologies. Jorge brought homemade tamales. Marie from 2 doors down hugged her and cried. I should have known better, she whispered. Ellen forgave them. Quietly, graciously. Karen's house went dark. 3 days later, a moving truck pulled up. She didn't wave goodbye. She didn't slam the door. She just vanished, like a storm receding, leaving nothing behind but snapped branches and the echo of thunder. Ellen stood on her porch that evening, the wind gentle now, a softness in the air that hadn't been there before. The lavender had started blooming again, and someone had left a small wind chime hanging from her tree. No note, just the faint music of healing. Rachel called that night. You won? She said. Ellen didn't answer right away. She watched the sun dip behind the rooftops and took a breath so deep it finally reached the corners of her chest where the fear had lived. No, she said. We all did. A few weeks later, someone posted a meme that went viral. It was a side-by-side image. Karen in her garden gala dress glaring into the camera, and Ellen at her game night, laughing mid-sneeze with a slice of pizza in hand. Caption. Beware the woman with banana bread. She's not playing. Ellen saw it. She laughed so hard she cried, because sometimes justice doesn't come with handcuffs. Sometimes it arrives in laughter. In truth, in the sound of wind chimes returning home.